welcome back, everyone. Come on in, Bills. Lawrence Foster here. Been a while. Glad to see everybody. Christmas Eve. Hope everyone is having time with their family, spending with friends, loved ones, all of that good stuff. Been a while since we've been here. Lots happened since we've been here. But so we're looking at the Bills right now in the playoffs. A lot of people saying, "Oh, this is the Bills' year." The question of the day is it really the Bills' year? They're all pointing to the fact that there's no likely no Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, no Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, no Joe Burrow in the playoffs, Josh Allen being like the best quarterback in the AFC. So the national media, a lot of the talking points are, "Oh, this is Buffalo's year. It's lined up for them." I'm not in that boat. I'm obviously a Bills fan, and I'm not in that boat of this is like make or break. This is by far the worst team the Bills have had in the last 5 years, the previous 5 years where they've won the AFC East 5 years in a row. The defense has major holes, major weaknesses. Obviously, the run defense being the biggest among them. I just saw last week again the Browns offense, which had done not much of anything, was able to move the ball pretty easily on the Bills' first half. And the second half, they got some pressure on them finally. But the run defense is the biggest reason I don't think the Bills will make the Super Bowl this year. Yes, there's no Mahomes. Yes, there's probably no Lamar. Yes, there's no Burrow. But the defenses the Bills are going to have to face and the teams they're going to face, I think, are going to be able to exploit the Bills' weaknesses a lot. If we look at like the Broncos, we look at the Texans who already shown what they can do against the Bills. The Jaguars offense with Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence playing at the highest level of his career. This is not the Bills' year. That they should not be the favorites. I'm not saying they don't have a chance. Obviously, with Josh Allen, there's a chance for anything, anytime. And James Cook as well. Like those two can carry them, but I can't see them doing it 3 straight weeks to get them to the Super Bowl. They're not going to win the division. They're not going to get the number 1 seed, so they're going to have to play the unfamiliar role of wild card. And this Bills team has not shown they can win on the road. They lost to the Texans the first year with Josh Allen making the playoffs. McDermott's first year, they lost to the Jaguars, which could be their wild card opponent this year. And then obviously all the losses to Kansas City on the road as well. So it's not as easy as everyone makes it out to seem. If Patrick Mahomes had not made the playoffs previous years, I'd feel a lot more better because I feel better about the Bills overall. And a lot of the offensive deficiencies are going to pop up because the defenses that the Bills are going to face in the AFC are going to make Josh Allen's arm beat them. They're not going to let James Cook go off, and they're going to make the Bills and their mediocre wide receivers beat them. If the Bills are to make the Super Bowl, it's going to be on the back of the running game, Josh just going full God mode, and then the tight ends, which I think is an underrated group. At the beginning of the year, if anybody was watching us back then, remember we talked about the Bills drafting Jackson Hawes and how that could benefit. Like the Bills ran a lot of extra tackle, which a lot of league is doing now. But they would be able to run the ball efficiently with Hawes, and that would open up more of a passing option. And over the last month, I think the Bills have kind of finally leaned into that strength of Dawson Knox, Jackson Hawes, Dalton Kincaid, kind of being the leading group, and because the receivers outside of Khalil Shakir aren't doing much of anything. They have 3 combined catches the last 2 weeks, which is just pathetic outside of Shakir. They've had Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman inactive, healthy scratches. They tried Elijah Moore. They've tried Brandon Cooks, who can't catch a pass. Curtis Samuel was just a bust of a signing last year. So they keep trying things out, but just nothing is clicking in the wide receiver room. And not to say like they're not good run blocking. Like the Bills' offense is clicking because their offensive line is good at run blocking. Their tight ends collectively are pretty good this year for the first time in as long as I can remember. And then obviously James Cook. being like a transcendent star this year. All off season, all training camp, the talk was, is James Cook worth it? He's going to get the extension. Out of all the extensions Brandon Beane and the Bills signed this offseason, he's obviously the best one. He's proven to be already a steal for what he's been making. He leads the league in rushing with 2 weeks left in the season. He has a career high in carries. He'll be over 300 by the end of the season. I mean, assuming the Bills don't start playing it safe and just getting healthy for the playoffs. But a lot of people are just thinking of the Bills in the past and pushing that forward into this year. And that's just laziness because they're not the same. You can't just say, oh, the Bills are the favorite based on the past. You got to look at this iteration of the team, and their weaknesses are going to get exploited by the good teams in the AFC. The Broncos defense, the Texans defense, the Jaguars offense will be able to exploit it. Now, depending on who they match up in the wild card, like if they play Pittsburgh, I'd feel all right with that. But if I don't want the Bills to go to Jacksonville, first of all, because that seems to just be just like going to Houston. Jacksonville seems like a place where the Bills just constantly lay an egg. I remember a few years ago, they lost 10-7 when the Jaguars are awful during the Urban Meyer year. That's one of Urban Meyer's only wins in the NFL was against the Bills. I was at the game. I traveled there a couple hours thinking, all right, this is going to be a nice win. I get to watch the Bills win. Nope, laid an egg. The playoff game in McDermott's first year, laid an egg. Let Blake Bortles and his legs beat him. Doug Marrone. So just playing in Jacksonville, especially with the way Trevor Lawrence is playing last month, finally looking somewhat like the guy that everyone thought he was going to be. Their defense is opportunistic, getting turnovers, and that's just not going to be a good formula for the Bills. If we're looking at the playoffs, being the 5 seed would I think be ideal because odds are they're going to be playing Pittsburgh, and I'd take my chances against Pittsburgh over Jacksonville. They're going to New England for sure. Although who's not to say that New England gets the number 1 seed? They close out with the Dolphins and Jets. The Broncos obviously played Chiefs, and they played Chargers in the last week of the year. So, I mean, who knows? The Chiefs are in full-on just season over mode, putting a whole bunch of people on IR today. But it boils down to the defense and the wide receiver group for the Bills. That's going to be the difference. And then obviously protecting the ball. Because a few times this year when the Bills have lost in turnovers, I look particularly at the first New England game with 4 turnovers and still almost won the game. And then just the shellacking at the hand of the Dolphins. I don't understand that. But if a team is able to run the ball, the Bills are going to be in trouble. And they can't keep counting on not showing up for an entire half, which they have for the last month, and getting wins in the playoffs. It's just not going to happen. You can do that in the regular season against like the Bengals, who aren't good this year. You can do it against the Steelers, who are just middle of the road. You can't do that against Denver or Houston or Jacksonville and expect to win. That's just one of the things I'm holding out hope for, is that the Bills are finally in the postseason going to put together a full 60-minute game. I can't think of a game where like maybe the Jets in week 2, but I can't think of like a full complete game from the Bills. There's been a quarter or a half or most of a game where they just aren't there, and that just isn't going to work. They can't keep turning the switch on at the end. That's not how the playoffs work. As great as Josh Allen is, as great as James Cook is, they got to show up. And that's going to be a team that beats them is going to be a team that's able to run the ball and sticks to running the ball. I don't understand why teams go in like if you're gashing the Bills, forget about balance. Run the ball until they stop you. The Bills are showing they can't stop the run consistently unless you're like not a good team. Like they did it against the Jets, they did it against the Steelers, who this version of the Steelers last few weeks has finally leaned into the run game. That might be more of a problem for the Bills this time because They kind of went a little pass happy, and that's what ended up costing them that game. Was that forced fumble sack of Rodgers to start the second half, and the interception the next drive as well. So the Bills, if they play like the Jaguars, ETN, and that, I'm worried about that. So don't listen to people that don't know about the Bills. It's not going to be. So since we talked last, some things we want to talk about. First of all, I was wrong about Jordan Poyer. When they signed him, I'm like, man, like I think a lot of people, rightfully so, they watched him in Miami last year, and he was a shell of himself. I'm reading an article right now on Go Long, the Substack by Ty Dunn, interviewing Jordan Poyer, and it's really illuminating to see what he and probably other players are going through, like just the grind of what the NFL is and what it does to them. But even he like last year, he was just lost in that Miami, like the defense and everything was happening. But he's really come in this year and steadied the ship after Rapp's injury. Bishop is playing up to his finally up to his potential. I think that's in large part because of Jordan Poyer being in there. And this past game against the Browns, Jordan Poyer saved what could have been even bigger, maybe possibly scoring runs by being a sure tackler. He's not making huge splash plays. They don't need him to be. They need him to be what he has been. A coach on a field, a mentor, and somebody who's not going to make the big mistake. They have the splash play people. Obviously, Benford has made splash plays last month. Cole Bishop has, and then really has just really stepped up. Trey White has been like, and then the last few weeks, Milano has kind of rolled back the clock too. So that's the one positive for the Bills is if Milano keeps rolling like he has, and if Ed Oliver is able to come back, like there's some chance the Bills can actually do the opposite of what they usually do. The defense is usually pretty solid throughout the year, and then they just go into the crapper in the postseason. So I'm hoping the trend continues that they do the opposite of what the regular season is in the playoffs this year. So in this case, that would be they actually play well in the postseason when they have struggled for a vast majority of the year. I look at last week, and did Greg Rousseau finally wake up and he's going to be an impact player? I'm tired of this. Oh, he's a great run defender. Okay, sure he is. But what does that do for the team? Because the Bills are 28th in the league against the run. So no matter how great he is as a run defender, it's not impacting the game. How much worse? They can be like 4 spots worse. Where he can make a difference, and he showed on Sunday, is actually getting sacks and getting the splash plays. For being paid $20 million a year, that's what he needs to be doing. And it's good that he picked up the end of the game this past week against Cleveland because he whiffed on a 3rd and 12 that would have given a punt, and again, momentum kept with the Browns. So I felt like he kind of made up for that. But if we're talking about X factors moving forward, like in the playoffs, let's talk about that. Dalton Kincaid needs to be for the Bills. He's been nursing a knee injury. It looks like he'll be again just sitting out all week, then playing Sunday. As good as Dawson Knox has played the last few weeks, minus that horrific drop Sunday in the end zone that would have just iced the game. Kincaid is that explosive person. Like, if he's able to be healthy and be a threat, that opens so much more up because he is the best intermediate option aside from Shakir. And Shakir isn't even given the option to really run those things. So many of his passes here have been within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And defensively, the X factor, I think it's going to be Matt Milano because the last few weeks he's shown in pretty big stretches of like who he used to be, which is an all-pro linebacker. The year and a half prior to this, he's been a shell of himself. Obviously, injury playing a factor, age playing a factor. And I think both the Bills and him kind of saw that in the restructure of the deal that made him a free agent after this year, saying, yeah, you kind of haven't been doing it. So he's the X factor. He hasn't really been healthy in the playoffs. If the Bills can get a healthy Milano, that makes a big difference in linebacker because he can make the splash plays that Bernard hasn't been making. And as good as Shaq Thompson has been this year, he hasn't made splash plays. He's just been there and solid. I want more than that. And Trey White maybe would let him be X factor number 2 on defense. He's had a pretty good year, again, just like Poyer, kind of making people eat crow, myself included, of what's going on. Trey was kind of forced into a lot more playing time than I think the Bills had anticipated with the injury to Strong, because he was rotating early in the year, but he got stronger hurt, obviously, the neck. Who knows where that's going? Max Hairston missed the first half of the year with a preseason injury. So Trey White's had a bigger role than I think the Bills thought. And he, after a few kind of early season bumps, he's really played well and defended well. Like his targets, his catches allowed are pretty solid. I say they're like right about the league median, league average. And for what they paid him and what they expected, that's Bills. The Bills will sign up for that every which way. And the same kind of goes for Joey Bosa, right? Because the Bills signed him, and the idea was he was going to be a situational pass rusher. Well, all the injuries, the suspensions kind of pushed him into a larger role, and he has succeeded. And knock on wood, he stayed healthy this year. And that's been the biggest issue with him is health. He's made some boneheaded plays where he's not read things right and allowed things to bounce outside him and got sucked in on misdirection. But he deflected the pass to end the game against New England 2 weeks ago. He had the forced fumble on Rodgers that allowed Benford to recover for a touchdown. He's deflecting passes. He's getting not the sacks, but he's getting to the quarterback and pressuring and forcing things. So that was a pretty good signing, and hopefully he's healthy and can flash even more at the end of the year in the playoffs. So if we're talking about that as well, I need to talk about the Bills coordinators. This past offseason, this preseason, this early season, I brought up numerous times about Joe Brady cannot scheme wide receivers open. And you've seen, like, when I watched the rest of the league, nobody, like, aside from, like, the Bengals with Higgins and Jamar Chase, you had the Vikings with Jefferson and Addison, Jaguars now with BTJ and Jacoby Myers. Schemes have to help people get open, and Joe Brady does not do that. Go and look what's happened since he took over to the passing game. Yes, the running game has evolved and become a bigger threat. Congrats on that, Joe Brady. But they've turned what was a potent passing offense into a pop gun offense, and that's being kind. The wide receiver production has dipped so much since Joe Brady took over. And maybe that's because, hey, they got rid of Diggs, but Diggs was there. And Diggs has shown, hey, he's still got stuff in the tank. And he wasn't producing with Joe Brady that second half of that year, 2 years ago now. And I said it this offseason, I'll say it again. He's not a good play caller. And he can't scheme people open. And yes, the Bills don't have the best wide receivers, but they have enough there that he should be able to do something with them. Shakir is so underrated if he's given the chance to actually catch something beyond the line of scrimmage. You have Curtis Samuel. You have Joshua Palmer. And then you have the tight ends we already talked about. You should be able to scheme stuff. Get James Cook out in the flat. Get him out in patterns like CMC. Why does James Cook have less than 30 catches this year? It doesn't make sense. The most dynamic player on your team, getting him out and like running is one thing, but being able to get him in a pass pattern into the open field, why is that not being done more? They put Ty Johnson's great. He's not James Cook. That's a Joe Brady thing. And it's going to end up costing the Bills. Yes, the number one would be fantastic. Yes, I think the Bills are going to address wide receiver in a huge way. But that's beyond it. Like Brandon Cooks, I mean, yes, there were some drops this past week. But go and watch like some all 22 that people post, and you can see, like, So often the receivers have no separation. The receivers, like you see the receivers kind of in the same level, like a few yards apart. It's scheme and it's just not working. Now I'm holding out hope. Like last year, Curtis Samuel finally showed up in the playoffs and acted like a wide receiver. Maybe they've been holding off all year just for the playoffs to kind of show, like, look, we're the greatest show on turf. Probably not. That'd be kind of silly because you never guarantee the playoffs, and they just clinched a berth with 2 weeks left. So if they're holding something for the playoffs when it's not guaranteed, that may be silly. But hopefully they're holding maybe some wrinkles in there that we haven't seen. I'd like to see more of James Cook and Ty Johnson in the backfield at the same time. Throw a wrinkle in, split James Cook out, then have Johnson. Are we going to run? Is it going to be a pass? Is it going to be an RPO? Like, make the defense guess more. You remember the Steelers game when TJ Watt was saying they just ran the same thing over and over. And this past week, you heard JJ Watt comment about it. Man, the Bills just ran the same play. Yeah, they run a lot of the same plays. I can figure it out. I'm pretty sure really smart football coordinators and players can figure it out too. Throw in a wrinkle. You ran a play, now do a play action, like change it up. That's all Joe Brady issues. The passing game would be even worse if it wasn't for Josh Allen being the one throwing it. If he wasn't Superman. If he wasn't able to create and make plays like he does outside of structure, outside of timing, outside of the pocket. Josh Allen covers a lot of warts, and a lot of the great quarterbacks do that. You saw this past weekend with the Chiefs, the first time playing without Mahomes, other than like the week 18, like rest everybody situation. They were awful. And that's kind of what Josh is. Like, yeah, the Bills would be better off than Chiefs because the Bills actually have a running game. But Andy Reid's one of the best schemers in the world, and the offense couldn't do anything for the Chiefs. And then the other coordinator spot, I don't know who to blame for the defense. Bobby Babbage is the defensive coordinator. He's the one on Mondays talking to the media. But it's hard for me to believe that it's not Sean McDermott heavily into it. And then I'm not a McDermott fan ever since 13 seconds. I think the Bills are wasting Josh Allen's prime. They're going to end up regretting not making a change if they don't win one. But I think McDermott does that type of stuff of like, oh, Bobby Babbage is our coordinator. He's calling plays. So there's a scapegoat for himself. Be like, oh, tell the Paculas, tell Bean, hey, like, I'm just there. I was kind of guiding him, but he's the play caller. Let me fire him and I'll be okay. And then we'll do it a different way next year. He's fired, like he's fired the offense coordinator. He's fired defense coordinator. He's fired special teams coordinator. What about the guy making the call? What about the guy making the decisions? When is he going to be held to the same standard? I look at other coaches and see how fiery they are. And I know that's not McDermott's style, but like every once in a while, it'd be so nice to see that passion of fire of like a Dan Campbell, of a Sirianni, of a Ben Johnson. Like this is his 8th year now. I never remember that from him. And it just, when things aren't going good, I'd love to just see him once, just don't lighten to your players, lighten to an official, like show that, because if you don't use it a lot, when you actually do get fired up, your players might respond to it because he doesn't yell all the time. They'll be like, oh man, this is big. We need to do something here. Like I'm a teacher. I hear, like, if you're a teacher and you're raising your voice all the time, it doesn't have an effect because that's just the new normal. If you pick and choose your spots, it has an effect because you don't do it all the time. It's not something they're accustomed to. So maybe he does it behind closed doors, but in the passion, like on the field and on game day, I want to see some of that. When your defense is getting gashed by Shedeur Sanders, and after Quinshon Judkins gets a horrific leg injury, the backup running backs are still gashing you. Like, show some fire, show some passion. And it bleeds into like the Bills talk about, oh, like we're level headed. Football is a physical and emotional sport. You got to have some of that sometimes. And to me, that's part of the reason why they are flat half of the time. Yeah, it's all cool to have that level head, but at the same time, you can't be falling behind 21-0 in the playoffs like you did against New England. You can't fall behind like by 15 points, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter like Baltimore and expect to keep coming back like you have. In the playoffs, you got to be there from whistle, from the opening kickoff to the last play of the game. You got to do that full thing, and the passion's got to be there the whole time. Obviously, they're a passionate group. Like you've seen Josh Allen fired up on the sidelines. You've seen Jordan Poyer and all those guys, Jordan Phillips. Matt Milano, not really, never hear him talk. But I just want to see more out of that. There's 2 weeks left in the season. The Bills have clinched a playoff spot. Technically, they're still alive for the AFC East title. I guess technically they're still alive for the number 1 seed as well, but I don't see that happening. So the next question becomes, what does the next 2 weeks look like for the Bills? Now, the Bills play at 4:25 on Sunday. New England will have already played the Jets. Okay. Odds are they're not going to beat that. The Jets are not going to win. The Jets are horrific. Aaron Glenn might be one and done. But can they stay healthy is the main thing. The last few years, so many key injuries that just produces the what ifs, right? Last year in the AFC Championship game, Christian Benford out in the first quarter with a concussion. The Bills' top cornerback easily. In comes Kaiir Elam. And the Patriots just go at him. And rightfully so. He was awful. He is awful. They traded him to the Cowboys. He was cut. The year before that, the linebackers, they had to sign Klein. A.J. Klein had to come pretty much out of retirement. He hadn't officially retired yet, but he was like in a camper on vacation. They brought him in, and he's playing in a divisional playoff game against the Chiefs because Bernard is hurt, Milano's hurt. So just one, I mean, the injuries that have already been all year, that's different, but these injuries at the end of the year, like, can the Bills get there and be relatively healthy? No one's going to be 100%. It's the NFL. If Ed Oliver can come back, that makes a big difference. But just from the roster that as it stands right now, can they get to the wild card with this intact? And to me, because the odds of the number 1 and the AFC East title are just so slim, I'd play cautiously to make sure we're as healthy as we possibly can be going into the playoffs. That means, to me, Dalton Kincaid, get his knee right. Spend the next few weeks getting his knee right. You saw last year, like when he wasn't able to come back on that desperation heave at the end of the Chiefs game, it was his knee. So get that knee right. Jordan Poyer has a hamstring this week. With his age and everything, like, get him right. Like, rest these guys, inactivate these guys for a game or two. Get them so the wild card round we're as healthy as can be, and there's no what ifs this year. Because then, yeah, I mean, obviously, if Michael Hoyt, if Ed Oliver were healthy, like, sure, nobody's fully healthy this time of year. But from this point forward, can you not get unhealthier, right? That's the main goal to me. Because the Patriots are not losing to the Dolphins or the Jets. They're winning the AFC East. So that right there eliminates us from the number 1 seed and the AFC East title. So it's the playoffs. And we already have a playoff spot locked up. So it's health. Yeah, you might maybe play your guys a quarter or two just to keep them sharp. But we don't need to be out like Josh Allen running designed runs the next 2 weeks, especially with his foot injury already. He should be taking a little bit easier. Week 18, it should be Mitch Trubisky starting. Well, Josh Allen won't let him start. Mitch Trubisky playing a majority of the game. So that's our insight on the Bills. It's been a while, guys. I'm glad to be back. There's not going to be a set schedule because that's just too much. When I'm able, I'm going to hop on, have a nice chat with everybody. We can talk, obviously, talking Bills. But if you have any NFL questions ever, I have NFL Sunday Ticket, 2 TVs that one is the main game, the other one is split into 4, so I can watch up to 5 games at once. Well, not at once, like focusing on one with the sound, but I'm also keeping an eye on the other ones. So I love football. Football is my thing. So even though I'm a huge Bills fan, obviously, all football is welcome here. If you want to chat anything about that ever, just throw it into the chat. We'll answer your questions live on the air. But it's good to be back. It's been a month and a half. Life happens, things happen. But I'm glad to be back. Glad Come On in Sports is a great networking community of people working here with you guys coming and watching and supporting us. It's always a lot of fun, a lot of energy. We always have good times here at the Come On in Sports Network. Keep it locked in here. You always have Dolph with the Who Dat Saints podcast, Zach and Non doing their things. Carlos always got your money stuff going on. Dr. Falcon doing his thing with the Falcons people. So for Come On in Sports Network, I am Lawrence Foster. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Hope to see you all soon and have a Merry Christmas holiday season. Go Bills.